So, the newest zombie shoot-'em-up released its first beta last weekend. But do we have a spiritual successor to Left 4 Dead, or have Turtle Rock Studios missed the mark? Hi, it's Ollie from Cross-Platform Gaming, and today we're going to be looking at the newly released first beta for Turtle Rock Studios' Back 4 Blood, the multiplayer zombie shooter available on current consoles and PC. The game is being worked on by former developers that worked on the Left 4 Dead franchise, so players across the globe are hoping that this will be a successful return to the genre for the much celebrated team. Anticipation is palpable for the title, as shown by the concurrent 100,000 players on Steam at one point over the beta weekend. We've also tried out the beta here at XPL, and we've noted our own pros and cons, but of course, please bear in mind that we are playing a game that is currently in beta stage, so some bugs are expected, and this is no full representation of the finished build once released with its day one patch. There is also a second beta following shortly that may address some concerns or build on any positive points that we raise in this video. Before we get properly started, we'd love it if you could subscribe to our little channel to keep up with our latest videos if you like what we do. And make sure you turn on bell notifications so you're notified as soon as there's a new drop. So, without any further ado, let's take a nosedive into the Back 4 Blood beta and make sure we're always aiming for the head. Let's start looking at the gunplay. The bare bones of this game is the shooting, as it's a first-person shooter. So how do the guns feel in the hands of the player? This is obviously a crucial part of a game of this nature, as it's its bread and butter. Please note that we played the beta on a PlayStation 5, so we'll be taking into account haptic feedback and how the triggers perform and mirror the guns shooting in-game. We jumped straight into the game on the default settings so as to play the game as intended. And the first thing that stuck out about the shooting was the ridiculous snapping in auto-aim. I feel that this may divide players, but of course, you can adjust this to your liking via the settings menu. When aiming down the sights, you will almost immediately be targeting the head or torso of an enemy, so it pays to keep hitting that left trigger whenever faced with a solitary enemy or a horde. You'll start feeling like John Wick within moments.
Well, I'm John Wick.
It makes the shooting feel arcadey, which I personally think works really well in the zombie genre, as it's not trying to be a military shooter a la Call of Duty with insane realism, and the enemies are much more plentiful, so shooting into a crowd of weak enemies is incredibly satisfying. However, for the much bigger sized boss enemies like the Ogre, the snapping auto-aim can be troublesome, as it seems to get confused and aim at the feet instead of key targets like the head and abdomen. Certain guns do feel weighty and have a punch as they should. You can really feel that with haptic feedback, with the triggers working as they do on other next-gen shooters such as Call of Duty Cold War. Of course, some guns are better than others, and that shows on the haptic feedback too. We found that the SCAR worked really well, both in-game and in the player's hand. A secondary weapon that really performed for us was the Desert Eagle, with phenomenal one-hit kills on the weaker enemies and a haptic feedback trigger requiring a bit of extra elbow grease to fire off, which makes sense for such a powerful hit in-game. The snap auto-aim with the Desert Eagle means you'll be pulling off unreal headshots and downing infected opponents, called the Ridden on the game, with ease. The guns on the whole do also sound great, with heavier weapons louder and their gunshots piercing the air around them. However, we did notice that unloading a full clip of an LMG sometimes caused the sounds to completely go silent on the guns, but of course, this could just be a beta issue that's addressed imminently. The guns are definitely a positive of the beta, however. This video is entitled An Honest Review, so I think it's time to talk about the AI, as we potentially move over to a more negative outlook. Okay, so before we talk about and delve into the issues with the AI in the game so far, we have to stress again that this is a beta, so many of the problems we and others encountered may be eradicated by day one, but they're there now. This game is an online multiplayer game, so if a player drops out of your session or there's not enough people to join the lobby, you will be playing alongside AI companions. Of course, A multiplayer online game will always reach a time where the numbers dwindle more and you're playing with AI a lot more frequently, unless your chosen online game is in the Grand Theft Auto or Call of Duty franchise. This is where one of the main problems arises. AI companions seem to have a knack, at least on the beta, of getting stuck in their own game world, completely stay rooted in one spot and not assisting the team, in what purports to be a team-based tactical game. The main issue is that whilst there is also issues with the enemy AI, the bots are on your team, meaning that their issues are hugely detrimental to the team effort, as all of their errors and glitches tend to harm your playthrough, whilst enemy errors and glitches can actually be beneficial or nowhere near as impactful as the AI-friendly issues. As is the case with these online multiplayers, some player-controlled characters you come across can be even worse than the AI. At least the AI is generous with providing ammunition when needed and won't go off on their own path to find valuable loot items when teammates are in peril. But I suppose that comes with the territory for these type of games. Back 4 Blood uses a card system, where you have a deck that can alter the course of the next stage, so items and perks for the player can be activated with your own personalised custom card deck. We think this is quite intuitive and adds a lot more to the game. The game will be released at full price, and the beta didn't comprise of enough content to warrant that price tag. Again, this is a beta, so more is sure to be added, but the card deck system added a lot more to the game and packed it with more replayability to combat the naysayers regarding the price tag. A game we could look at to compare it to is World War Z, that came out to great fanfare and also picked up some awards, but was released at a discounted price, so Turtle Rock will have a lot to do to make sure their game is worth the fee that's attached to it. Microtransactions are present, which unfortunately can be expected nowadays, but they do seem to be purely cosmetic for now. Here's hoping that Turtle Rock see out their promise that it won't become a pay-to-win game and any game-altering aspects can be earned in-game without meticulous grinding or dipping into your wallet. Weapon attachments are also plentiful and can be added in-game when in a safe house and starting a new level, so hopefully the meteor ones won't need a price attached to them at any point in the future, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. A plus point for Xbox players is that it will arrive on Game Pass on day 1, meaning you won't have to pay a penny to experience the full title on October the 12th. Another annoying topic of discussion needs to be the difficulty settings. As in most games, there are 3, which are Classic, Survivor and Nightmare. At first glance, even the most casual player can assume that this would be easy, normal and hard, but it doesn't seem to quite work like that. The Classic difficulty is by far the easiest, of course. There are only a small handful of times where ourselves or teammates would be downed on this setting, meaning that casual players wanting to breeze through can access this easily. The trouble comes when you move up to Survivor and Nightmare. The gap is astonishing. Survivor, the middle setting, is intensely harder than the classic easier difficulty setting, and you'll find yourself overwhelmed if you're in a team with little cohesion, or you've got those pesky AI bots backing you up. It can be navigated and provides a challenge, but its transition from classic is brutal, so you'll need to prepare yourself. Nightmare, on the other hand, is a complete joke. The general consensus is that it's nigh on impossible, with multiple news outlets and players saying they're simply unable to progress on levels whilst playing on that setting. We think the difficulty gap really needs to be tweaked by Turtle Rock, not just for the full release on day 1, but we'd like to see some change for the next beta too. Nightmare seems only doable if you're in a full team of 4 with constant communication and you're coordinated. Randomly assigned foursomes will majorly struggle, especially as the game does not teach you tactics required to really attack the game. You're just thrown in to see what happens. On any setting, you're thrown into the game's hub world and then straight into gameplay with no tutorial whatsoever, other than an optional shooting range in the hub world, so the game does drop you right into the deep end from the get-go, which could ostracise casual players, but the more hardcore group of potential fanbase would see this as a big positive. Graphically, the game is passable, but to compare again to Left 4 Dead, seeing as it's pretty much the same devs and it literally has a 4 in its title, it does feel like something is off. At the time, the Left 4 Dead games felt so crisp, and whilst Back 4 Blood obviously looks better than them, it's just down to the fact that it's a newer game. It doesn't look anything like its innovative forefather. The comparisons are hurting it a little, as it's not a bad game at face value at all. but the Left 4 Dead franchise is held in such high regard that it really needs to take players back to the time whilst also improving on it for it to be the huge success it can be. The guns look good, if nothing spectacular, and the player models are okay, but the ridden enemies aren't too intimidating, especially the large bosses the game throws at you. All in all, Back 4 Blood is an enjoyable game when looked at on its own, but it doesn't quite match up to the behemoth that is Left 4 Dead in its current state. The time we've spent with the game so far has been enjoyable, and we'll continue to play throughout the next beta with some content potentially hitting the channel in the near future, so stay tuned to XPL for that. Back 4 Blood definitely has potential that can't be ignored, but it does need a hefty amount of work done to it before the official release. If the required development is done, we could genuinely be seeing a new heavyweight in the zombie shooter genre, a genre that really needs another big hitter. Whilst there have been some negatives throughout this video, they aren't all consuming, and by no means is Back 4 Blood condemned already, so we're looking at this one with optimism, and here's hoping we have a great title to sink our teeth into come October. So, that's our view. If you agree or disagree, please be sure to sound off in the comments below and let us know your thoughts and leave a like, as it really helps the video, especially on a smaller channel like ours. Again, we'd love it if you earned your subscription. It's completely free and aids us in an attempt to build a gaming community here at XPL. So from me and the rest of the team at Cross Platform Gaming, thank you very much for watching, and please stay safe.
Be sure to subscribe to my channel, Braz.